He promised you he would heal you. He will fulfill it. If he promised you that he was going to make a way out of no way, he will fulfill it. If he promised you that he will be with you even until the end of the earth, there will not be a day that he will not be with you. The truth is you're in a waiting season, not a stuck season.
At Long Branch, we are saving souls and solving problems.
Because it's time to celebrate. Look at somebody and tell them it's time to celebrate.
Well, hello, everyone, and thank you so much for tuning in on today. Today is a special day because we get to have a wonderful conversation. It's a conversation that I believe that many of us need to have, but you need to have it in the environment that is not only conducive to what you're going through, but also the environment that can actually help. Today, we're going to talk about credit. We're going to talk about how you are viewed even when it comes to financial matters. And now we know that it may be even employment. It may be being a part of an organization, a board, advisory group. It's how you are presented to the public without you actually being there to speak for yourself. Listen, I've been there. I know how it is to have something that can speak kind of negative about you, but it's really not you. Listen, things happen. And when things happen, you need to know how to navigate around it. There's a thing called a credit score. There's a thing called credit. There's a thing called FICO. There's a thing called Experian. There's a thing called Equifax. There's things called TransUnion. There's a whole lot of terminologies that we want to talk about today. But we want to talk about it in the aspect of what the Bible says. And that is that God will help us. God will give us everything that pertaineth to life. You have to do your part. Have faith that God will come through in so many ways. Listen, I'm Sean Dogan, pastor of Long Branch Baptist Church here in Greenville, South Carolina, and I'm always excited to come to you to present the word of God and to have strategic conversation for your future, for our future, but most of all for the kingdom of God. I want to just take a moment to say thank you, thank you, thank you for all the prayers that you sent for First Lady, myself, as we traveled to go to see Ramaya. We were out of the country for a couple of weeks. We're glad to be back. We were back Sunday, and it was so good to see so many of you at service. on Sunday. I want you to know we're back. Ramaya is back. We picked her up from the airport last night. I think she's in hibernation for the next couple of days. She said she's just going to crash and get some rest for the next couple of days. But we thank you. Thank you for the prayers. Thank you for the support. I also want to remind everyone that this coming Saturday, 8 a.m., we will have intercessory prayer. I hope that you will be there. Pastor Richard Donald from the Open Heart Baptist Church will share in the word of the Lord with the congregation on Saturday. Also, we want to let you know that our leadership meeting will be at 9:30. Leadership meeting 9:30. And then I can't wait for Sunday morning. It's first Sunday. And don't you dare forget, first Sunday, we have all three services, 7:45, 9:45, and 11:45. I look forward to preaching and teaching the word of the Lord at all three services. We'll also have communion and baptism on Sunday. Communion during all services. Baptism will be around 11:15, 11:20. We'll be in the chapel. And I hope that you will come and celebrate with all of those who will be baptized. We do want to let you know Mother's Day is coming up. Don't you forget about Mother's Day. Mother's Day is coming up second Sunday in May, and we will have what we affectionately call Hat Day. Hat Day on Mother's Day, 9:45, 11:45. Ladies of our church, I hope that you will decide to wear hats on Mother's Day. This is hosted by our Ministries of Helps, and I pray that you will come not only with having your head adorned with beautiful decorative hats, but also remember we have Hat Day because we cover our children. That's the whole significance of it, that we're covering. It's the covering of our children. Please support the Ministries of Helps. Also, don't forget, baccalaureate services coming up. If you have an application for baccalaureate to participate in our baccalaureate graduation service, don't forget the deadline is May the 7th. Please, please, please have all your applications in on time, May the 7th, 12 noon. This is so important. Parents, please, please, please make sure that you're pressing upon your young people to have their things in on time. It's partly because of responsibility and accountability that we put deadlines in place, but most of all is in order that we can celebrate and be prepared to celebrate all of our graduates. And this year, I know that we're going to have many graduates from high school, college, technical school, university. We're grateful for that. And then last but not least, First Lady Day is coming up. May the 26th, we'll be celebrating Long Branch's First Lady, but my only lady, First Lady Satriva, will be celebrating her at all the services on that day. First Lady has also asked that we be a part of a volunteer campaign. She's asking for volunteers to help celebrate her day by volunteering at different organizations, different activities. The planning committee will have Sunday opportunities for you to sign up. It's things like the Ronald McDonald House, Generations Group Home. It's helping with Silvertan at the Miracle League baseball game. It is also helping with a whole lot of other places. And First Lady has a plan of going around to all the places to see you volunteering at all of these locations. She loves our community just as much as I do. She loves you just as much as I do. And we want to make sure that we are having a day of service. It will mostly be on Saturday, May the 25th. She has handpicked organizations that she wants to be a part of, and she wants you to help her be a part of, making an impact on those organizations. All right. Listen, I know that there are other things going on. Don't forget Relay for Life this Friday. Relay for Life this Friday. Gibbs Cancer Center. Oh my goodness, there's so much going on. And then don't forget also the NAMI Walk is coming up. We'll be participating in that as well. Well, listen, without further ado, I want to take the next 20 to 25 minutes to really hone in on two guests that we have today. One is our very own Miss Rhonda Rollins, who is also part of our team here at Lone Branch to make sure that information gets out, especially information when it comes to community organizations and community information. And then also a dear friend of mine, who's been a friend of mine for years, Miss Carrie Smith, the president of Self-Help Federal Credit Union. And we're so happy that she is with us today. I'm going to turn it over to Miss Rollins. We're going to just have a conversation. She's going to start it off, and then I'm going to jump in, and then we'll also make sure that you have the information that you need. Listen, we would love to hear your questions. We do not have a formal way of capturing them, but if you put them in the chat, we'll make sure that we go look at those. And if we don't answer those questions tonight, we'll make sure in other broadcasts or other times we get those questions answered. So, Ms. Rollins, we'll turn it over to you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Pastor Dogan. I just want to start out by saying that I am so proud and honored to be a member of a church that is so intentional about the betterment and upliftment of our community. So thank you so much, Pastor Dogan, for definitely leading the charge with that. You are intentional about uplifting. And we say at Long Branch, we are saving souls and solving problems. And anytime I ask Pastor Dogan, can we talk about a particular issue that I think is really important to the community, he never hesitates to welcome the platform. So thank you. Thank you. Now we know that credit is something that is so important to our daily lives, but it can be a stressful topic as well, especially for people who don't really know how to look at a credit score, what to do to improve their credit score, how the whole system works. And I was one of those people too that was, really kind of stressed about it at one point. And so I thought it would be great to bring this topic to Long Branch, and no better person to talk about credit than Carrie Smith, my dear friend too, who is executive director of Self-Help Credit Union. And so I want to start off just by, before I start my questions, just turn it over to Carrie to just introduce yourself a little bit, although so many of us already know you, but, introduce yourself and talk a little bit about self-help.
Well, first of all, thank you all so much for joining, because this is a passion of mine, and have two wonderful friends invite me to share this information is a blessing to me. But at Self-Help, our mission is creating and protecting ownership and economic opportunity for all, specifically for people of color, of women, rural residents, and low wealth communities. So we live out that mission in a lot of different ways. But this particular event tonight is one that we're intentional and focused on helping folks to, one, understand credit and really help folks see how it impacts every part of our lives. So I've been in credit unions for 37 years. I am a financial coach. And so this is just an opportunity to share what it's taken me decades to learn. So try to give you all just an overview of it, and really start what I hope is you walk away with one or two things that you can leave with and implement today, and it not be something, it's not a heavy lift. You just have to get started.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Carrie. And so, I just want people to know not to be discouraged, because there are things that you can do and steps that you can take. So let's start off with something really simple. So what actually goes into a credit score?
Oh, that's a great question. And it's not a mystery about how they do it. But credit scores, you will see, depending on which type, there's 3 different credit bureaus in the country. So we have TransUnion, we have Equifax, and Experian, and they all have a little bit different. There's Advantage scores, and then they have FICO scores is one thing that you'll hear. But they're all very similar. And I'm going to state up front, it's a rigged system, because this system does not give anybody any kind of credit for saving up money and purchasing a car with cash. It's about a system that the only way you're going to win is to get credit and to manage it well. So, so one of the things that there's 5 factors to your credit score. Scores can go from 0 to 850. So there's 5 areas. One is your payment history. So if you've got credit today, the first thing you want to do today is make sure that you pay every one of your bills on time. That is the biggest chunk of this credit scoring system. The second most impactful piece is if you have a credit card. Credit cards, we look at utilization. So if your credit limit is $3,000 and you're using $3,000, your balance is $3,000, it is harming your credit. You generally don't want to charge up more than 1/3 of whatever your credit limit is. So if your credit limit's at $3,000, you don't want to be holding a balance of $1,000, anything over $1,000, because it will start impacting your score. New credit. A lot of us, we maybe our car breaks down and we have to go shopping, right, for a car. Every time somebody does an inquiry to look at your credit, it diminishes your credit score. And the reason for that is because you're out trying to get credit, and the system doesn't know if every single one of those companies gave you a loan. So it's just an indicator. And then you have the mix of your credit. So there's 2 types of credit. You have installment and you have revolving. So installment is like your car loan, your mortgage. The revolving is credit cards. So, or a home equity loan or something like that, where it's just a line of credit and you draw on it as you need it. Now, other factors to your credit score are things like bankruptcy, your collections, liens, and especially liens in regards to tax liens. Bankruptcy, it's going to stay on there for 7 years, but generally it will impact your score for about 2 years. And any kind of collections, maybe you moved out of an apartment and maybe you moved out before your lease was up. And we see a lot of folks that it ends up, they file a collection for whatever the amount that the landlord felt you owed. Now I'm going to tell you, we see lots of errors in that. And then probably the other biggest collection items we see is medical debt. So that is what's made up of this. That is what the score is. And so really it is just kind of paying attention to all of those elements.
Right. And so you bring up a good point. One of the questions I was going to ask is, what can someone do if they have less than desirable credit to boost their credit up? And you answered a lot of that with what you just said, making sure you're paying your bills on time. Don't charge more than 1/3 of your credit limit. So if you're already above that point, I would assume one way to get your credit to jump a little higher is to pay that bill down to the 1/3 mark, or maybe a little less. And then also the credit mix. And someone was asking here in the chat about how can they find, because when you look at these credit, like TransUnion, Equifax, isn't it a good point to go into those credit reports to check to see if there are any discrepancies? Because a lot of people's score may be down because they don't know that they can go in and look at their credit and check it and dispute things that may be wrong.
Absolutely. And you can, because of COVID, it used to be you could only get a copy of your credit reports once a year. Since COVID, you can actually go once a week and as much as once a week to check your credit score. You're not going to see a whole lot of movement if you do that every week, but I would say once a month, I would definitely. And if you've never ever looked at your credit, I encourage everyone to do it tonight. You can go. There's a free website that you can go to get that information, and it's credit report, freecreditreport.com, and or you can go to cfpb.gov. And it will walk you through getting those actual credit reports so that you can look at it. For somebody that's never looked at their credit, I can guarantee you there's probably something on there that's not correct. So make sure you look at it. Another big thing that we see that a lot of people don't think about is if you have a cell phone with these carriers, a lot of times you'll change your cell phone carrier, and the other one will put a collection on your credit report. Or we see a ton of Spectrum where you've had TV service and they say you did not turn in your equipment. And we found people that absolutely did turn in their equipment, never got credit for it. But the biggest thing is what a lot of folks that's never checked their credit, they're afraid to look. Avoidance is not the way to handle it. Because I'm going to give you one thing. Write this down. If you don't control your money will control you. And it's the same thing with your credit score. We have to take an active role in what is reported out to the public by these credit scores.
Wow. Now, I know there's a lot of things that self-help does, and Pastor Dogan wanted to chime in too. We do have a few questions, so I guess we could save those for the end. I'm trying to keep track of them all. But Pastor Dogan, I know that there were some things you wanted to talk about, the MICA program.
Absolutely. So first of all, let me just tell all of our members and friends, we're going to go overtime tonight. So we'll just kind of get rid of that notion right now. So absolutely. So I think there are some questions in the chat. So Carrie, you mentioned about when something is reported incorrectly. How does a person advocate for themselves when something is reported incorrectly?
Well, there are, you can actually, at the credit bureaus, file a dispute on any of your trade lines or anything that's reported to the credit bureaus. And I would do them, like I said, those disputes, they have to answer. So they're going to go back to whoever reported it and ask for the documentation of why, of what this was. And it's very easy to do. You can go to each one. I do suggest also while you're there, maybe put a freeze on your credit report so nobody can go and inquire. Unfortunately, we see a lot of fraud where individuals will get somebody's social security number. They'll go apply for credit in somebody's name, and it's not you. It is fraud. So going to the credit bureaus and having them freeze your credit, your credit report, and it just gives you more power. Now, when you're ready to go and apply for credit, all you do is go back and you unfreeze it, and then get your loan, and then put the freeze back on. That way, it really does help with fraud.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that. Let's talk about companies that say that they can clean your credit. Can you talk about that? I mean, it's one thing to have credit repair, but can companies actually just wipe things off of your credit?
No, it is. If anyone tells you that they can get anything and everything removed from your credit report, that's just not true. And anything any of those companies do, you can do yourself. And there's actual at cfpb.gov. There's actually toolkits on there that'll teach you, tell you step by step how to remove things. But if it is a true debt, and that, you are responsible for it, you can work with the lender or the the doctor or whoever is turn this over to collections, they'll work with you on satisfying that debt.
Right.
But I do recommend working with a financial coach or a counselor, only because there are certain points where you don't want to necessarily go and reopen that credit, because collections start, they will drop off, and they're if it's over 2 years old, a new lender generally won't look at it unless it's bankruptcy or a lien or a tax lien or something like that. So that's and we have lots of organizations in Greenville that do it for free. We have a financial coach on staff that's free. We can do a soft credit pull, and we'll go through it with you. We will walk with you if you want to, we take 6 months, a year working with you to help you, and we'll give you small goals and walk you through how to do it. The other great organization here in town that we work really closely with is the Greenville Financial Empowerment Centers through the Greenville County Human Relations Commission. They do a fabulous job, and it's all free. So just know that just because they want you to pay for something, it's something you can do for yourself, and they can't do anything that you can't do on your own.
Right. When it comes to FICO, when it comes to Experian, when it comes, or to Advantage and all the other names, if a person is going for a house, should they be concerned about one credit bureau over the other, or does it depend on actually where the bank is, in which one that they pull, or do they just pull all of them?
That's a fabulous question. If you're talking a mortgage, generally the lender is gonna pull all three, and some of them will only use the lowest score, and some will use the middle score, and some use an average of the three. So if you're looking for a mortgage, it is imperative that you pay attention to all three. Now, if you're looking for a car loan or a signature loan or something, or credit card, it's specific to the institution. For us, we use Equifax, but a lot of banks and credit unions use TransUnion. So it really is. That's why it's so important to make sure you know what all three of yours are, and so that they're in line.
Great. Medical bills. Medical collections, do they really affect your credit, or is it certain types of collections that affect you more than others?
Medical debt, several years ago, there was some regulatory structure put in place that medical debt is not supposed to impact your score overall. What we're seeing, though, is in the application is when it first posts, when it's first put on your credit, it is showing that it diminishes your score, but over time it bounces back. Collections that don't fall off are things like I explained, rent, where you maybe have left a lease and they're saying you still owe money, whether it's Spectrum, whether it's cell phone bills. Those kind of things will continue to diminish your score. So those are the ones, if they're over 2 years old, work with a financial coach to decide, do you make an offer on that debt and get it paid off, or is it better just to let it go, and eventually it's not going to impact your score?
Right. Is there a section on my credit report that I actually can write something up, like to say, this was a time in my life where I didn't have employment, I got laid off? Is there any personal advocacy that you can do for yourself that can be listed on your credit report that lenders will actually take note of?
Absolutely. And that's a consumer remark. I encourage people, because if you went through a major health issue, like you went through cancer treatment, and so you may have been out of work. if you put a public statement, if you put a consumer statement on there, you could explain that, because as a lender, I can look and I can see, okay, you paid your bills well for 4 or 5 years, and then there was a period of about a year where your payments were behind, and then I see, oh, it's bounced back. I know something happened. I mean, that's that we know that. And if you put a statement on there that says, I was suffering from cancer and I was out of work, or I got laid off, I found another, that kind of thing. It just helps the lender to put it into context, but it does help, definitely.
Yeah. Credit builder cards, or these cards that are advertised that this will help you build your credit, or even secured loans. Does that type of loans or credit cards, do they really help you build your credit?
That's a great question, and they do. We offer what's called our credit builder loan, or what I like to call a reverse savings. What you do is you get the loan. We take the proceeds from the loan. So you can do as little as $500, or you can do up to $2,500. So what we do is we put that money into a savings account. We lock it. You make payments on it over time. We report to all 3 credit bureaus. That's another thing. When you're getting a loan, make sure that your lender is reporting to all 3. I will say it is an anomaly. Most credit unions and banks, they only report to 1, but we report to all 3. So you pay on that for the term of the loan. We encourage people do $1,000, right? Because savings, that $1,000 emergency savings is key to financial success. It's not credit, it's savings. So you pay on it, and and then we also offer a secured credit card product where you put on deposit, $250 up to, $2,000. And that's your credit limit. And then you charge. We see routinely people that get these 2 products, and within 6 months, their credit score will go up 20 points, 30 points. I've seen as high as 60 points. And especially for people where they didn't have a lot of mess up, where they've had periods and made some mistakes with credit. But they just didn't have any positive credit or any credit at all.
Sure.
And that's the difference between a 6, I see people with a 580 and they're in the mid, 620, 640 after 6 months, 6 months to a year. So it's huge. But those are ways to definitely do it. They're low cost and really make a huge impact.
Great. I want to go back to the consumer statement just for a second. In order to input that to your credit, you can go to either one of those credit bureau agencies that you told us about. And as you dispute, there's also a section where you can do the consumer statements, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Great.
And go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, you go right ahead.
I was going to say, and that's something that, especially like in fraud, if you've experienced fraud, make sure that it is noted, because a lot of times what we see is fraud. And so you want to make sure that that's on your credit report, and you'll need to get a police report when it happens to you.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to say something to parents out there. Please, 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 please. If you cannot make the payment yourself, do not co-sign with the child or some other family member for a loan, because time and again, we will pull credit and there'll be a loan on there where somebody's co-signed and the borrower did not pay. Yeah. And you are on the hook. If you co-sign for a loan, you're on the hook.
Exactly. What type of score does a person need when it comes to purchasing items such as a vehicle, automobile, or a house? Are there thresholds there? And I'm sure those thresholds also equal interest rates. I really don't want to get into interest rates, but I just want to get into what qualifies the thresholds to qualify for certain things.
Absolutely. And you can find credit at any credit score, but generally, your fair credit score, which is going to be your, 630, 640 and above. So up to about 700, that's a fair to good credit score. Over 700 is a very good credit score, and anything over 800, that's an exceptional score. Now I'm going to tell you, there's very few people that have an 850 credit score, just because of what it takes. Because everybody, at some point you're going to miss a payment somewhere, just because, it can be you didn't get the bill, you forgot about it. So it's unusual to see anybody that's, an 850. But pricing is the biggest, setback to having a poor credit score. For us at Self Help, we do mortgages for people with a 580 credit score and above. So because we use alternative credit. So if you pay your cell phone bill on time for a year, we will use that alternative credit to qualify you for a mortgage. If you're trying to buy a car, you're going to want to be in the 620 to at least, 660, 675, just because of pricing. Because your interest rate's going to be several percentages higher if you don't. And if you're under 600, you're going to pay subprime. And some lenders are not going to lend to you for a car loan. So you're going to end up at buy here, pay here places, or some alternative lenders.
Yeah. I want to get to a conversation that we heard today. Matthew Desmond was a guest to our city for the last couple of days. Today, he presented to a group of over 800, almost 900 people at the Peace Center, talking about his book, Poverty by America. We won't go into all of the things he talked about. However, he did talk a lot about people who are in poverty. And many of us, including myself, have lived experience when it comes to poverty. And we know that along with most of the times with poverty, we also have this alternative way that we survive or we finance things in our lives. So there are people who are watching tonight that may have dealt with payday lending,
Title
loan, car title loans, title loan companies, high interest rate. People wouldn't even, you have no idea what you're paying as far as interest when you get there. And I don't want you to get on that, because we can be on that soapbox forever. But I just want to give hope to those who are not traditionally banked. And I think I have a very strong argument on why you should start looking at traditional banking. But there are people who do not, for whatever reason. We know that the interest rates on title loan and on check cashing are extreme. Can you just talk about some of the efforts that are going on right now with the South Carolina Fair Lending Alliance on capping those rates? But then also maybe you can give us literature or website resources that people can go to hear about that. And then I want to end it with a wonderful group, or should I say, I guess, a collaboration, a group called Micah Lending that is right here in our area that could possibly be a great help for people on us watching today. So tell us about South Carolina Fair Lending Alliance. Give us the website, what we can find on that website, and then let's end it with talking about Micah.
Well, thank you. This is something I've been working on with faith communities across the state, nonprofits, and the South Carolina Apple Justice Justice Center here in South Carolina to rein in predatory lending. And there's a lot of abuses going on in our state, unfortunately, around these types of loans. What we've learned over this period of time is that there's a lot of deceptive practices used by these lenders. So you may get a live check in your mailbox that says, hey, go on vacation, and all you got to do is endorse the back of this check. But what it doesn't tell you is things like the interest rate on that loan is 170%. It doesn't really tell you how many months you've got to pay it, but you sign the check, you put it in your account, and you are on the hook for that loan. They also do things called churning, where you have a loan with them and every 3 months they call you up and say, hey, don't you want to refinance your loan? Well, keep in mind, these loans, in 3 months, you have not paid one dime towards the principal of that loan at all. And so all they're doing is collecting all of the interest up front, and then they have you refinance. And so we find people that start out with $1,000, and I'm talking to them 10 years later, and they owe over $5,000. They've never touched that first $1,000 that they borrowed. And so the South Carolina Fair Lending Alliance, if you want to get connected, it's scfairlending.org. Very easy, scfairlending.org. There's all kinds of research on there. There is a place where you can get involved. Tell your story. One of the most powerful things, and unfortunately, there's a lot of shame wrapped up in this kind of lending. And what I want to say to you is you should not feel any guilt or shame about this, because they prey on individuals that are in financial crisis. And when you're in financial crisis, you cannot critically think through the best options. And it's because of this, Pastor Dogan and Rhonda, that's where Micah came from. Micah is a nonprofit that was born out of St. Anthony's Catholic Church here in Greenville. They went out to their parishioners and said, we need a small dollar loan program. So they raised money. They raised about $30,000, and they put it on deposit with us at Self-Help. And they have financial coaches, and they're called them neighbors. And they sit with people that are in financial stress, and they go through their whole budget, and they look at and figure out how best to meet the needs of the individual in front of them. What we learned is about 50% of the people couldn't afford a loan if the interest rate was zero. And this is another term I hope you all take away tonight, is you cannot borrow your way out of debt. So if you're borrowing money to pay your monthly expenses, you cannot win at that game. You're just not going to. So what Micah folks do is they walk people through this, and they find them resources. So if they can't afford a loan, what they do is they help them find a repair place that can fix their cars for a donation. They've located people in their congregation that have repair shops. So, or is it rental assistance? Is it food? Is it, what all those things? And if that person can afford a loan, they send them to us. We open their account. We do the loan on our books, and we report to all 3 credit bureaus. And so then that person, at the end, one has a banking relationship, and the real reason you want a banking relationship is because you got to have a place to save. Because like I said before, saving is the key to financial success. But it also, we've had people that went through that program, and then they needed a car. They came to us directly. We were able to do the loan for them because their credit scores were improved. They have a relationship with us now. We have a history with them. And so now we're able to do these loans for them. And Micah is just, it's really starting to ramp up, and we're going to grow, and hopefully it'll be an organization that will include a lot of different faith communities and volunteers to help those folks that are struggling financially.
Well, I love the concept, and our great friends at St. Anthony's, I've talked to them on several occasions about the program. I know the kind of seed money that they produce, but could you tell us, just as a faith community, like if we wanted to join in those type of efforts, what type of amount makes an impact? You know, part of our slogan is saving souls, solving problems, but we're in the midst of a decade of impact. So it is I'm
Yes.
impact, your impact, but we're better together. What's the amount if we wanted to save, if we wanted to join that type of effort? What is the amount that really makes a difference?
Well, these loans are generally small dollars, so you're talking $1,500 or less. So, an investment or of 1,000, $2,000, that's at least one loan that you can help underwrite. And the great thing about these revolving loan funds is that money sits there and we have a very low loss rate. And the reason, because we have that relationship, right? Because that neighbor walks alongside the borrower until that loan's paid off. So
Mm.
if there's another big, say somebody had to be out of work for a day or two because their kid's sick and their paycheck is short, they go back to their neighbor and say, "Hey, look, this happened. How can we solve this?" And so that's why we have a very low loss rate. And so once the money's there, it sits there and it just keeps turning over to the next borrower and the next borrower. So the investment is actually very low. One of the things, though, I'd love for y'all to think about is the volunteer side. We teach people how do you look at somebody's credit? How do you determine whether they can afford a loan? How do you be that partner in this with our neighbor? So there's lots of ways to be involved. So it's not just raising some money to be able to help folks, but it's also about giving others the opportunity to walk alongside folks that are suffering through financial hardship.
Carrie, you've been great as always. Thank you so very much for this time, and thank you for joining us today. I hope that this won't be your last time, and I hope that this is something that Ms. Rollins will bring back up, bring to our attention, in order that we can just go a little deeper. And not just credit, but other facets of our financial journey. I believe that the Word of God is so correct and so true, even when it comes to our finances. And I just believe that not only should we trust God with our tithe and offering and all of the things that we do for good, but we need some help on what we do with the other 90%, right? In order that we
Yes.
can live and do well. So thank you so very much, Carrie, on tonight. Lone Branch, thank you for tuning in on today. And thank you for all that you do. I know we went over on today, but I think it was worth it. And I hope it won't be the last time. Remember all of our announcements. Remember all of the great things that we've talked about, things that we're doing. Always remember, I'm impact, you're impact, but we're better together. And don't you ever forget that I love you. First Lady Satriva loves you. Ramaya loves you. And even Chip loves you. Go in peace and serve the Lord every day of your life. God bless you.